Okay, excellent. Thanks so much for the kind introduction, Sharon. It's wonderful to be here. I tell everyone this is probably my favorite meeting because it's not too often that you get to bring all the spheres of business, ophthalmology, retina, medicine together to try to come up with some sort of innovative ways. So the clinical trials of the future, in essence, are already here now. So, we started with clinical trials through these very convoluted, very, very paper-centric processes that just are hard to do anything meaningful. They don't really ensure robustness of the data. So, you start thinking, why exactly are we doing like this? So our model on the bottom left here is kind of how we approach our strategic thesis when I write protocols, when I design clinical trials, when we do clinical trials. And we could really spend a lot of time on a lot of different things. So I'm going to leave you with 5 things that the clinical trials of the future must have, and they're actually being done now. So the first one is you need some sort of modernized workflow that has digital source. So over 90% of sites are on paper. On paper, you lose a lot of the arbitrage that you can get in terms of review auditing and in terms of how fast your data moves. You cannot manage your data if it's on paper. So it's a critical part. Once you start doing that, these kind of fun things start happening. This is from our patent on our workflow. So, what's important here is you can think about the doctor as the blue guy, the study coordinator, which is what we know is really the one that really matters in any clinical trial, is the orange one, and then purple is the knowledge translation. What this is we call it essentially a triangle of assessments that exists out of your traditional data entry functions. We know that we don't want to have the study coordinator leave the PI and go put that data into EDC or whatever system that bioinformatics is being used. We want that study coordinator to continue with the PI and see another patient, because that's where the revenue is going to come from. That's where it's going to be. And so our workflows basically do that with now all knowledge translation, EDC review, EDC input, EDC resolution. They're being done by somewhere else on the cloud. The physician and the study coordinator carry on. So without on paper, this is just not possible. Number 2 is you have to leverage a global network. I think doing clinical trials in 2024, for 2 reasons you need a global network. One, it's just faster to enroll, activate, and ensure that the trial goes well. And number 2 is we know that the FDA's mandate on inclusion in research, that if our trials don't reflect the populations that those drugs are going to serve, we're going to have to start raising issues. And the best way to do that is by having global partners. And we have these sites. And then to Sharon asked this question in the last session. So, how can you use basically collaborations with companies? So that has led to each one of these companies has either was created from this process or has a formal agreement independently with CASEx to basically achieve the things we need to achieve at a much, much better clip with our costs down. Because ultimately what we want to do is this. If we can integrate the whole thing in clinical research right from the beginning till the end, we can actually then do a lot more. We can actually revolutionize this space and do 2 things that we want to do. 1, ensure that the data comes out faster while still maintaining operational excellence and robustness. And 2, that we can actually see the signal, give that IP a chance to work. And so I think that for trials in the future, vertical integration, where in standard of care medicine, vertical integration is nice. You get ROI back, you have the multiples built up. In clinical research, ROI, the vertical integration is required. That's how I like to think of it. You need it to work, because when you use it, you get this kind of stuff. So now your referral and recruitment process, we have basically apps and AI in the referring process, so we can actually call on patients by diagnosis for whatever trial, and we start getting these kind of more diverse, more inclusive, larger trials being enrolled. And this is kind of like our strategic thesis with CASEx. You see here, our forecast has allowed us to grow, and really the way we transform pharmacoeconomics is really still going back to that. Get that product out faster by having more meaningful clinical trials faster, but you cannot sacrifice safety, robustness of the data. That always has to remain. So we kind of get here, we have multiple industry bests that allow us to do this. We've been audited many, many times, and we've never had any major findings. Because of this process is novel, and it allows us to now, we can move away from 8% risk management platforms or approaches and move to 100% data review in these ways. But there's challenges, right? Like, I'm sure when you're looking at that, they're using, we're running trials on 5 continents. There's over 1,000 clinical trial patients enrolled in trials right now on these 5 continents. How do you manage this data? How do you watch it? How do you see it? How do you ensure that it's correct? And so this is one of the examples to Sharon's point of innovation. Like, once you can't do this yourself, but if we hire an FDA auditor, and then with our clinical AI partners, created Pharma Shield Partners, a new company that basically is an auditing system that runs 100% on your data in the background. There's companies use this, we use this, and this is actually the workflow, how it goes from the left, and we go to basically an initial automation phase. In the middle, there's a partial automation, and on the right is a full automation. No humans are no longer involved in this. So this is real-time risk management. The clinical trials of the future will need real-time risk management, because you're going to be able to understand SAEs way early. You're going to be able to understand, especially in first-in-human stuff, what those signals are doing, where sometimes I see, you figure it out 6 months after the trial's finished enrolling, which is more challenging then. And it allows us to kind of get to this futures now mindscape, where we can get to these arbitrage and start bringing these costs down and really impacting. And how we're doing this at our sites and in our trials is basically through a host of AI products that we've created for ourselves. There's a study coordinator AI that manages the study visit. There's KPI, which is a financial metric for clinical research. Physician referral app, it goes to the referral so that we can refer right into trials that we tell them. Vision Med is a clinical AI product that we've developed. We have LensLogic AI for increased pre-IOL conversion. We have many reading center algorithms for reading data. So kind of this idea that, hey, we can move forward. And I think we hear so much about, AI going to do this. I think just number 5, the last one, is there will be AI. There's going to be a period. How regulatory predicates arbitrage, now that's going to be the fun stuff that we get to figure out, right? So I think that's what I'm looking forward to. This is our platform for AI. It's basically developed from something called Surge Tech. It's the first real-time AI video analyzer in medicine. This is ours here. And because we've taken this engine now, and you'll see next year come out for GI space, because endoscopy is just another variation of that. And then you'll see next year as well for ecography and cardiac, because angiography is angiography, right? Whether you do it in the heart or in the retina. So I thank you so much for the invitation. I thank you for all our partners who have indulged me in some of our creative ways of how we approach it. There's no way that I get up here and say any of this if I don't have all these wonderful companies and smart people working together. So thank you so much, and happy to answer any questions.